Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. This one is player rankings for Game Week 37 with myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy, which, if you don't know about Ingenuity Fantasy, do check them out. Link in the description, ingenuityfantasy.com. All sorts of good stuff on there. You've got articles from various people about differentials, captaincy, you've got match stats from Opta, you've got the player rankings, which we're going to be talking about today. And you've also got the transfer wizard, which is a cool feature. You basically go in, you put what position you want, you put what price you got to spend on it, and it will give you a ranked list of players to be considering. So yeah, do check that out. But today we'll be talking about the player rankings, which is 6 different categories. Myself and George will each have a top 10 list for each category, and the categories being budget defenders, premium defenders, budget mids, premium mids, budget forwards, premium forwards. So let's get straight into it.
Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of FPL Player Rankings, the penultimate FPL Player Rankings actually. And yeah, as always, we will get started straight away with the cheap defenders. Now, one point we just want to mention quickly, you will notice Sessegnon is no longer a feature here. I mean, that is in no small part down to him now moving back into Fulham's defence. Fulham looking quite a bit out of sorts. But also, while we're on the subject of Fulham, Robinson, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. He seems to start one game and then get benched. I mean, earlier on in the season, you know, he's one of the standout defenders who was recording tons of assists. So, I mean, Brad, you don't know what's going on there either?
I think the weirdest part about it is it's not even benched. There must be some sort of issue because over the course of 4 weeks, he's just gone from starting, completely missed a game, wasn't even in the squad, started the next game, and now has completely missed another game and isn't in the squad. So yeah. I haven't seen anything about it. Maybe Fulham fans, maybe there is something about it and I've just missed it. But yeah, I'm not sure you can trust either of them right now.
Yeah, completely agree. But yeah, as we said, just completely bizarre. So if anyone does know anything about that situation, please do let us know. Now on to a team who, I mean, probably are the team you want to be targeting right now, especially considering they've got a plethora of cheap assets as well, and that is Villa. Now, Villa's fixtures, we mentioned last week, absolutely unbelievable, not least because of the Europa League tie and, you know, Spurs and United playing weakened teams. But also, Villa are just one of the better teams in the league. So I think the question it boils down to really is, who do you go for out of Konsa, Cash, and maybe even Dean?
Maybe not. For me,
I knew that was coming.
I just think Dean's not an option. You'll notice that Dean isn't in my list. Maatsen, if you're talking league games, Maatsen has started 3 of the last 5, which for me just makes Dean not an option at all. I mean, there has been FA Cup games in and around it all as well. I don't doubt that Dean will get minutes and probably get 1 start, but you can't guarantee 2 starts from him, I don't think.
Yeah, completely fair. So I guess out of Konsa and Cash, I mean, is the slight difference in price? I can't remember
the same in prices. Both 4.4.
The same, yeah. So I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know who you lean towards more than. I mean, Cash for a fullback hasn't seemed to have had nearly the sort of threat that you want a fullback to carry.
Yeah, I do lean towards Konsa, just through a kind of slight more safe option, I think. I mean, Cash does seem to be getting just the bulk of their minutes now, but you know that Konsa is going to get pretty much all the minutes, whereas there is a world where Cash doesn't. So yeah, that'd be my only reason, but there's not much in it.
Yeah, and I think Konsa also just profiles as slightly more likely to get bonus points. You know, given, I mean, sort of his name brand value, he seems to be, you know, always at the heart of Aston Villa's defence. Wherever he needs to play, he plays. So he's just that sort of defender that profiles as that more. So I think I'd probably lean Konsa as well. And then, so another interesting option, who, you know, Brad has been championing and we need to speak about again, is Wan-Bissaka. Now, I've seen the light up a little bit and realised that West Ham's fixtures have actually managed to overpower how bad they've been this season. Mm-hmm. So Wan-Bissaka just seems to be the main beneficiary of that.
Yeah, attacking wise, he's good as well. I mean, he got an assist in the last game, which meant he got 12 points. we were pretty lucky to keep a clean sheet. In the second half, United were kind of battering us, and Areola just saved us, essentially, kept that clean sheet for us. But yeah, the fixtures are just good. He's 4.4 million as well. He is ridiculously attacking. Like, you wouldn't associate that with him unless you've watched him this season, but he is crazy attacking. So yeah, I think if you need a defender for the last two, then he's pretty good. It's Ipswich away in 38. I don't even think Forest at home this week is too bad a fixture, given that they haven't looked that great recently. And Wan-Bissaka's got 19 points in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, I like him.
Yeah, and hard not to agree with that. I mean, I think everyone's concerns earlier in the season were A, West Ham are bad, and B, he's not that attacking. But as the season's drawn on with these final fixtures, both of those things, when a defender presents themselves with great fixtures and attacking threat, it's just almost always a recipe for success. Now, someone with slightly less attacking threat, but one who does play for a far better team, and who I imagine a lot of people have, not least because of his value, and that's Kivior. Now, Kivior is an interesting one to buy, given that the fixture against Newcastle isn't fantastic, but that fixture against Southampton is just tasty.
Yeah, and they do have something to play for, but that doesn't seem to have mattered. They've been quite rubbish, I think, Arsenal in the last couple of weeks, and for no real good reason. I mean, they did have the Champions League to focus on a little bit, but the game against Liverpool, I expected them to be better in that game. I would expect them to be better in these last few. So yeah, I've got Kivior in my team. I'll be benching him this week probably, but I'm definitely keeping him for that Southampton fixture in 38.
Yeah, I mean, literally the best fixture on the calendar. So yeah, I mean, if you have that sort of budget and you have someone else there currently in defence, then it's a very, very valid option to just roll this week and bring him in for next week, because this is probably not the week you're going to start him. And then so that leads us on to the premium defenders. Now, despite Newcastle putting two past Chelsea, we did get quite a bit of luck with the Jackson red card. Not luck that it shouldn't have been a red card. I mean, it was a stupid elbow from Jackson. But I think one of my main takeaways from that game, sort of watching it live, was how far forward Cucurella plays. Now, even before the red card, Cucurella was getting forward, and playing incredibly highly. But, after the red card, he almost played as a winger the entire game. And, he caused a lot of threats. He had a shot on goal that was, very easily could have gone in if not for a great save by Pope. He just seems to be in fantastic areas of the pitch. I mean, he's definitely worth a consideration for bringing in for these final two if he's going to keep playing there. Yeah,
I think so for sure. He gets into some weird positions for a left back. I mean, earlier on in the season we saw him kind of playing in like a 10 position when Chelsea have got the ball. Seems to be doing that a little bit less recently, but that doesn't stop him from being attacking. He's been very high on the left, and we keep banging on about the fixtures against Man United and against Tottenham. They've got Man United at home this week, which is an unbelievable fixture, and the fixture in 38 is Forest away. Not unbelievable, but again, not horrendous.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the best time to play Forest all season is right now, because they just seem so out of form. If this was the Forest of about a month ago when they were coming off beating City, coming off beating Arsenal, you'd say that was a bad fixture. But I think right now they just seem to be in all sorts. Owner was on the pitch. Like, it's the best time to face Forest for sure.
Yeah.
Now, someone who profiles as pretty similar to Cucurella in terms of attacking threat, and who has been reducing at times, is Munoz. Now, Munoz, I mean, I've got Munoz quite high just because, I mean, I think the fixtures actually aren't too bad at all. Wolves at home, and then that, Liverpool, but it's a Liverpool with nothing to play for. Now, so, we'll likely see heavy rotation there. I mean, what's not to like about Munoz in those two? Is it just that Liverpool fixture?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to see that as a good fixture, even though, like you say, right now it isn't particularly bad. I mean, even if they don't rotate, since they've won the league, they've looked pretty ordinary, which you'd expect given they've got nothing to play for. they're literally on holiday this week. I think the whole team's in Dubai on holiday.
Yeah.
So
It's a slot in Ibiza.
yeah. So it's not a bad fixture right now. I do struggle to see it as a good fixture, but for me, it's more Palace. They're too hot and cold. I don't think they're particularly reliable. Although Munoz is probably one of the more reliable players, given that he has attacking threat and obviously the chance of clean sheets, as we saw this week with 11 points. I do like him, but I just do think there's probably better options.
Yeah, and it's complete. I think if not for the emergence of Cucurella, if you were looking for a player within that budget, I would have recommended Munoz. But I just think where Cucurella was playing and the fact that he actually plays for a much better team, who are in a tooth and nail battle for Europe at the moment, I think I would probably lean Cucurella if it's very unlikely that you have the transfer for both of them. Given there's other areas of the pitch that need addressing. Which again, I think would probably then rule you out of a move for, a sort of Ben White or a Timber. Now, we will have this discussion because I've sort of been trying to jump the gun a bit on when Ben White will get back into the team. And Brad has definitely been winning in that department by telling me it's just not happening. But Ben White has got 2 starts in his last 2, so I'm ready to dream again.
Yeah, it's not the worst shout, to be fair. I mean, we all know that he's very, very good. It's just it's hard to trust any Arsenal lineups it's hard to trust what we've seen in recent weeks from Arsenal lineups, given that there was a lot of maybe rotation from around the Champions League games. So it's hard to know what is their best 11 and who they'll kind of actually put out. I mean, if we're going off kind of most recent strongest 11s, it's Timber, but also White is good, and White has historically been very good in that position. So I don't think either are that bad, but I probably wouldn't actively go and buy either of them right now.
Yeah. I think the difference is as well, when you have Ben White on the pitch, I mean, not that Timber's bad going forward or getting in the right areas, he's got a couple returns, but Ben White does seem to quite enjoy putting balls in, or, as we saw in the last couple of games, he does like dancing his way into the box and, trying to make stuff happen. So you do just get that slightly elevated attacking threat with Ben White that, you wouldn't get if Timber was there. But yeah, again, there is a lot of uncertainty, and hence why he is at number 10. But as we said before, that Southampton fixture alone, just means that they are in this list. So, yeah, probably a wait and see. Definitely not the week to move on Arsenal assets if you are going to be buying.
Yeah.
That rounds out the premium defender segment and indeed the defenders. Let us know what you think of our lists. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again for the midfielders. Right, welcome back to the midfielder segment. We will get started straight away with cheap mids. And I think another good place to start, I mean, we had this discussion last week. Apparently a start and a return is still not enough to convince Brad that Trossard is a good asset. I mean, is it still just concerns about rotations for you then?
Yeah, I just don't know if he's in that strongest 11, to be honest. That's kind of all it is. I'm not 100% sure he's in the strongest 11. There's a world where he doesn't play, and it's Martinelli, Saka, Marino. I mean, we've seen it against PSG that it's quite easily the case that he could not play. So that's all it is.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just a bit more hesitant about saying he's definitely not going to play, while Marino's having to do shifts in midfield at times. So I think also he seems to be in form. I mean, we said this before, like he's where a lot of chances are coming from, and he's where a lot of assists and goals are coming from.
Yes, but
I think that just makes him a tricky drop.
If he was so in form, then why didn't he play? Why didn't he start against PSG? Is my argument to that.
Yeah, I mean it's a valid point, and it's mainly been, I think against PSG, they may have wanted to set up in a slightly more conservative manner. Um, but naturally, I'm just speculating here. But I mean, that's my only thinking, because I don't. It's hard to see a player playing that well and returning that much, and just think why, and then just be like, why would they get benched? If they're generating that level of production. I mean, we've seen a few teams do it earlier this season when players are playing really well, they'll just suddenly get benched, and I just can't understand it.
If he was, if he was playing genuinely every single game and there wasn't any other option but for him to play, then he'd be on my list. But the fact he didn't start in that game against PSG suggests to me that he's not in Arteta's first 11. So it's not that he won't start. It's not that I think he definitely won't start. It's just that he could not start.
Yeah, I think for whatever reason in the league, he started the last 6 Prem games in a row. So I think, even though he's rested for the PSG one, I think maybe they trust him in the Prem. I don't know, but I think until he's benched in the Prem, I do just believe in his minutes. I think, and who's someone who's closely related to that is Martinelli. Now, we did see a bit of Martinelli up top as well, against. Who was it against? And against Liverpool, we did see a bit of Martinelli up top, but I mean, he didn't look that great. So I mean, do we continue seeing Martinelli up there?
I don't think we'll see him up top, to be honest. I think he's obviously his best position is on the left, and that's it. Again, if I knew that he was going to start both games, he'd be top of my list, as would Trossard. So. He's only third because of the uncertainty. I just think he's more likely to get more minutes than Trossard. But yeah, there is uncertainty there as well.
Yeah, I think at the moment, I personally like the gamble on Trossard, especially with that Southampton game. But naturally, if you are thinking about bringing Arsenal assets in, we mentioned it about the defenders as well. Just be cautious, because there seems to be a fair amount of chopping and changing all over the pitch at the moment. Now probably over the last 3 games, the most in-form FPL asset at the moment, and that is Eze. Now, surprisingly, Brad has been championing, Eze all season. So I'm imagining that this slight drop is a bit of fixture concern.
Yeah, I mean, when we were looking at it last week, he had a run of 3 fixtures in which the best one he's now just had, which was Tottenham. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the next 2 aren't bad, and it's not necessarily that I think he is a worse option now. I just think it's more that there are just better options that have gone above him. Still think he's very, very good. I think if you own him, you definitely don't sell him. But yeah, it's more just if you're buying someone, I would buy one of the Villa guys instead.
Yeah, I was going to say, which leads us nicely onto those Villa guys. Now, I think, given Villa's fixtures, it's and how much they're playing for, it's very tricky to go wrong with either Rodgers or Asensio. I think the way you describe it is, because Rodgers is slightly less money, got more minutes. He profiles as the slightly safer option. I think, given Asensio's capacity to, return multiple times, and also, the fact that he's on penalties, he's probably got the higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do prefer Asensio, but I'm quite big on penalties, as you'll know if you've watched this before. I mean, he hasn't got the minutes that Rodgers has, though. I mean, I do think he starts both games, but he's typically getting 60, 70 minutes, so it is close between them. If Asensio was getting 90 minutes both games, or I thought he was going to get 90 minutes both games, then he'd be clear for me. But it is closer because Rodgers will get the minutes, whereas Asensio won't, but is on penalties.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an absolute toss-up. I think the underlying point is you can't really go wrong with either of them. Yeah. Both fantastic options. So definitely, if one fits your budget more, then absolutely don't hesitate and go with what fits your team best. Now, every time we mention this man, I mean, I can't say we, it's Brad. Sharda has been on an unreal tear since Brad brought him in. Now, it's worth mentioning, before Sharda returned in that first game, I think he had a string of absolutely no returns, and it was the second that Brad said Sharda, he has just turned into, I mean, Brentford's one of Brentford's best attacking assets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is a fixtures thing. Like we always try, and that is always what I will look at. I will always look at what teams have good fixtures coming up, even if the players haven't returned. Like Sharda haven't returned in 8 game weeks, I think it was. Starting most of those games as well, pretty much all of them actually. Just got to look for fixtures, good fixtures, and obviously a stretch of Man United and Ipswich. You can't really ignore at this point in the season. But yeah, I mean, the last 3 weeks, 8 points, 14 points, 11 points. You can't get much better than that for 5.2 million.
Yeah, and I think that's what underpins him as a selection. It's that absolutely insane value. So, given how popular Whistler and Mbuemo have been recently, you're seeing their price ranges go quite high. Sharda profiles as a fantastic option into that Brentford attack in those fixtures for a much lower price range. So yeah, absolutely fantastic option. And the good thing about him is unlike some other clubs, people will be loading up on Villa, people will be loading up on City maybe. One thing that is quite good about Sharda is you're very unlikely to have 3 Brentford assets already. So a lot of people will have that Brentford space readily and available, and so at that price point, just a great option. And so, I mean, it leads us on to one who I've seen a bit of chatter around on X, and I think that's just, I mean, maybe the recent games have had something to do with it, and the good fixtures, but me personally, I don't feel ready to trust Kudus yet.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest. He's on my list, but he's quite low down my list. He's only on my list because of the fixtures. I mean, mainly the Ipswich fixture in Game Week 38. I think there are too many other good options in his price range and cheaper to go for him, really. I mean, it is just it would be a real gamble on fixtures. He's not even getting 90 minutes really either. He came off 72 minutes in the last game. He did get 90 before that, but there's no guarantee that he gets 90 minutes, I don't think.
Yep, completely agree. So, even though there has been a bit of chatter about him, I think given the existence of, Villa assets and, a potential fun one at Arsenal and, Eze, I think it's just hard to see how Kudus fits in, really, especially considering how many people have Bowen. I don't really think West Ham's pie is big enough for Kudus to have meaningful returns in that sense. So, speaking of Bowen, that does lead us on to the premium midfielder segment. Now, a bit of movement sort of in and around the middle of both of our lists this week. And I think, especially considering, the rise of Saka, that will be in no small part down to that Southampton fixture and, now that Liverpool fixture is out of the way.
Yeah, and kind of a minutes thing as well. I mean, as we mentioned, Arsenal do actually have something to play for. They haven't looked great, but they do, and that screams to me that Saka will just get both of these games. And Southampton away is obviously an unbelievable fixture. The difference being as well that Salah, while the fixtures aren't bad for Salah, Liverpool just aren't looking great since they've got the league wrapped up, and Palmer and Chelsea also haven't looked great. I mean, we'll talk about Palmer in a bit, but I think for me that just makes Saka the better out of those 3.
Yep, completely agree. I mean, as you said, we've seen Liverpool on holiday. They've put their trotters up. They're playing kids. So I think I wouldn't believe too much in Salah at the moment. But I mean, a man who's actually struggled with belief recently, Cole Palmer. Now, granted, against Newcastle, he didn't look great. They did suffer from, having his sort of his best enhancer, if you will, in Jackson being sent off. But what do you do about Palmer at this point if you're one of the people who's still hung on to him?
If you've still got Palmer, you keep him this week for sure. The fixture's too good.
Yeah.
Man United at home is about as good a fixture as you can get this week, so you definitely keep him. I think he is the best captaincy option this week. So if you do have him, I would personally also captain him. But yeah, Chelsea haven't been great, so I completely get why people wouldn't. But yeah, that's what I think on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to disagree as well. If you've already moved off him, I completely understand it. And as Brad says, if you do still have him, now is not the time to move off him either. But all in all, he's been just incredibly frustrating the past couple of weeks. So, I mean, it's hard to recommend buying him, even with a fixture like this. And then I guess someone else who's been slightly more encouraging and, whose fixtures are there is, similar price range, and that's KDB. Now, I mean, earlier on in the season, we sort of saw him frozen out, and then he had a knock. But I mean, recently he seems to be having a bit of a swan song, and he's actually really, really helped with their securing of Champions League football.
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty good, hasn't he, in the last 3 or 4 weeks? I think there's no reason that he won't get these last 2 games as well. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah.
So, and the fixtures aren't horrendous either. Like Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, not unbelievable, but.
Yeah. Both out of sorts at the moment.
Yeah, 2 pretty good fixtures. So I do think he's a good pick. If you own him, I'd keep him. If you don't own him, I'm not sure I'd buy him. Given that you can, if you've got enough money, you can get Saka instead, which I would do. But yeah, I don't think he's a bad option at all.
Yeah, and now another one that's been tricky, especially these past couple of weeks, has been Anthony Gordon. Now, a lot of people, the main debate over the past couple of weeks is, which 2 out of the 3 out of Gordon, Murphy and Barnes are going to get the minutes. Now, what Newcastle tend to do, especially in big games, it's like, bringing out your finest tuxedo for a dinner party. Newcastle bring out their 5 at the back. Now, what was interesting about that is all 3 of them managed to get minutes, and we saw Murphy at right wing back. Now, we do this when we really don't want to concede. I think that's a pattern that I've seen, for big games. So it's not the most attacking. But what was interesting about that is it was Barnes and Gordon furthest up the field. Now, Gordon also looked pretty sharp, so I think we can definitely say that he's shaken off whatever injury was holding him back the past couple of weeks. But I think another thing that's important to note there is Barnes looks rubbish. So I think, I left him off my cheap mids list in protest because I wasn't happy. But I mean, he was just so wasteful in the final third. Every time we were under pressure and we needed an outlet, he would just sort of lose the ball, take silly shots on. And for that reason, I won't be surprised at all if our next game you've got Gordon starting on the left and Murphy starting on the right in a more traditional 4-3-3.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to see all 3 of them on the pitch as starting anyway at the same time. I do wonder what we would have seen if Trippier was actually available. I think that would have made the selection a bit more interesting, and potentially one of them would have actually missed out, and that would have given us a little bit of information. But I don't know kind of what the latest is on Trippier. I don't know if he is available for the next game or not, but we may just see the same lineup again, given that it worked quite well.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning as well. It started off pretty well. When Chelsea were chasing the game, we really didn't play well. I mean, we've got a lucky result. It was 1-0 the whole game, and we were up against it with 10 men, and then Bruno managed to get a deflected long shot at the end, but it weren't a huge amount of positives to take from that game. So I think, there will definitely be some chopping and changing. So now is probably not the time to be banking on Newcastle assets in that sense. So, that rounds out the premium mid-section and the midfielders in general. Let us know what you think of our lists. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again for the forwards. Right, welcome back to the forward segment. We will get started straight away with the cheap forwards. Now, I mean, really not a whole lot to speak about this week. I think a good place to start, though, will be the return of João Pedro. Now, earlier in the season, João Pedro was an absolute demon. And, Brighton's remaining 2 fixtures aren't too bad at all. They've got Liverpool at home, they always seem to give him a game, and Liverpool have nothing to play for. But then that Tottenham away fixture, when Tottenham's focus is going to be elsewhere, not a bad pair of fixtures at all for João Pedro.
Yeah, the fixtures are actually really nice. I'm a big fan of those fixtures, to be honest. It's just João Pedro is such an unpredictable FPL asset. He can either, just looking at his most recent kind of points, 13 points, and then he got sent off the following game. That sums him up more than anything. Very, very good. Yep. When he gets the minutes, obviously, very attacking player. A lot goes through him. He is on penalties as well, so there's a lot to like. And he's very cheap, given that there isn't a whole load of other options in the cheap forwards kind of category at the moment. You've got Evan Nilsson, who's not far off his price, but besides that, he is the kind of cheapest good option, I'd say.
Yeah. I completely agree. Actually, I think obviously below João Pedro, it's slightly dubious to say the least. But he's definitely a player that can be considered, especially if you're someone who really believes in fixtures against teams who have nothing to play for or whose attention is elsewhere. We've seen it materialising quite a lot recently, actually. So I think, definitely not a bad option. But now on to someone who is a fantastic option and you should all get immediately in your teams, and that's Liam Delap. That's Liam Delap. Fixtures do not get better than Leicester and then West Ham at home. As far as just fixtures go, that is the best two fixtures that any team in the league has.
Yes.
This is the man wanted by Man United and Chelsea. Just go get him in your teams.
I don't doubt that. In all fairness, he is a ridiculously good footballer. Whoever gets him is most likely going to get a bargain as well. Unbelievable footballer. But right now for FPL, he's just pointless. Firstly, Ipswich have failed to score in 3 of their last 4 games, which says quite a lot. But also, Delap just isn't getting the minutes. He had that weird stretch of 2 games where he didn't start. Didn't quite understand that because Ipswich weren't even relegated at that point. Since then, he's played 70 minutes, 67 minutes, 61 minutes. So even now he's starting, he's not getting good enough minutes. So that's why he's 10th on my list.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue with that. I think the main thing as well that makes him untrustworthy in these 2 fixtures, as you say, is the minutes. I think he's suffering also from maybe a bit of transfer speculation around him. It's very evident that he wants to move on. United are sniffing around, Chelsea are sniffing around. So, I think with Ipswich already being relegated, there's probably, they're probably just wanting to rotate and chop and change players and just, give some of the rest of the team a run out. So, I think he's definitely. As we've said before, everyone sort of below this section of the list is pretty bleak, really. But I think, what that does do, that moves us on to the premium forwards, where pretty much everything is happening right now. Probably the most hotly discussed section in all of FPL right now. So I think a good place to start will be, right at the top with Haaland. Now, Haaland is an interesting case at the moment, not least because we're just not sure what's happening with City in general. But, he only recorded a 0.05 XG against Southampton. So have City lost a bit of potency with him?
I don't know. First game back in a while, the thing to be encouraged by is the fact that he played 90 minutes, which maybe he wouldn't have done if City were winning that game comfortably. But, City just kind of seemed to struggle in that game anyway, which they hadn't done in the last few. I thought they'd looked quite good recently. Yep. They just didn't in the last game, so I wouldn't particularly worry. If you've got him, then I'd definitely keep him for the last 2 games. I don't think you need to worry about that. But I'm not sure that I'd go actively buying him right now, given that it would require quite a lot of surgery to your team.
Yeah, unless you're sitting on a ton of cash, which I can't imagine many people are, then because there are enough other good options, that he's probably not worth a move. One of those options being Ollie Watkins. Now, we mentioned before, Villa probably the best pair of fixtures you can ask for. And, no rush. Watkins just will likely get the lion's share of those chances.
Yeah, I think Watkins is definitely the best forward to be buying right now. I bought him in last week as kind of, if you watched last week's episode of player rankings, I kind of realised live on recording that I could afford him. And yeah, I then proceeded to go and buy him in as soon as we found out that Marmoush was benched. Got a bit lucky, to be fair, because I wasn't really expecting him to outscore the likes of Wissa and Wood in Game Week 36. I wanted him for 37 and 38. But yeah, he kind of held his own. And yeah, now with those two fixtures, I think he is the best forward option. You've got pretty guaranteed minutes. I think Emery did say that there's a chance Rashford could be back by the end of the season. But since then, I think he might have actually gone back to Man United now. But anyway, Watkins will get the minutes. If Asensio's not on the pitch, then there's a small chance Watkins does get some penalties, but Watkins is probably the worst penalty taker on the planet, so might not be a good thing.
Yeah, completely agree. I think, we said before, Aston Villa are just the team to target at the moment. So, a lot of people are probably moving on from forwards at the moment. I think, a lot of people are moving on from Mateta. Some people may even be moving on from Cunha. Some people may have even lost faith in Isak. So I think Watkins is as good a landing spot as that transfer gets. So, speaking of Isak, actually, now, even though Newcastle seems to have been playing all right recently, Isak himself seems to have taken a bit of a step back from, his normal prolific self. Now, it's emerged that he's been sort of battling a groin injury for the last, couple weeks or however long, which I think, if you've watched any of Newcastle's games, has been pretty evident. He just looks a tiny bit off the pace. He's not, doing the same runs in behind. I think just given that Newcastle have a lot to play for, and he's clearly shown he is going to play through them, he's probably not a sell. But at the minute, just because of these issues, I think he's probably not a buy either if you don't have him.
Yeah, I'd say he's definitely not a buy. I do think he maybe is a sell. If you don't have Watkins, then I think that move is really nice. If you can get to Watkins another way, then and you've got someone more important to sell. For example, if you've got Marmoush in your team, we'll get on to him, but he probably needs to go. So if you can get from Marmoush to Watkins, then great, keep Isak. But if you have kind of no other, if you've got, say, Isak, Wissa, Wood, then I think an Isak to Watkins move is pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning the only player that you would consider, just because of how good an option he will be for these next two games, is Watkins. But yeah, as Brad said, if you already have Watkins in your team, it's not worth moving Isak to anyone else. So yeah, definitely, it's quite a unique position to be in. But in general, I think given he's going to play through, and given Newcastle have so much to play for, I think you can feel, even though he's injured, relatively confident about his minutes. Yeah, definitely not reason to panic there. Now, I mean, speaking of a place where people have been panicking, though, Mateta. Now, a lot of people have been moving off Mateta. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say you don't see the reasoning behind it. I mean, his minutes seem to be being restricted quite heftily, even though he's getting into good chances. Into sort of good situations. Yeah. It's probably the time to move off Mateta then.
Yeah, the fixtures are okay. We mentioned it earlier. Wolves at home, Liverpool away. Don't hate them. The minutes are a worry. 59 minutes against Tottenham is a worry for sure. The minutes haven't been great for a while, in all fairness. Another worry is the fact that they have got the FA Cup final. Just going to check when that is, because I think the kind of timeline between games is actually not too bad. So I'm not sure that we need to worry loads about it. So the FA Cup final is on the 17th, and then the next Premier League game is on the 20th. So there's definitely a few days between it. I would be surprised if Mateta doesn't start the last 2 games, but I can see his minutes being managed potentially in game week 37. So yeah, if you can get from Mateta to Watkins, then I do like that move.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's probably the route that you would want to go down. But it's kind of similar. I mean, it leads quite nicely into the sort of Wood and Cunha debate as well, because I think quite a few people are sitting on Wood and Cunha. Now, Wood I'm less concerned about than Cunha, just because Forest have tons to play for. So minutes wise, I can't imagine Wood not getting the lion's share there. But Cunha did get subbed off for the 60th minute in Wolves' last game. So just maybe, and also, similar to Delap, he's suffering from a lot of transfer noise around him as well. So I can't imagine Wolves will be, super excited about, keeping him on the pitch for as long as they can.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit worried about that now. I'm not sure that he's kind of a priority sell, but I do think he's probably not a buy now, especially given that when he came off, it wasn't like they were comfortably winning the game and he could just be rested or anything like that. Like, they lost the game. So, yeah, that is a slight worry.
Yeah, so I think in that sense, Wood you'd say you'd probably stay on, and then Cunha you'd probably move off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Completely agree. So yeah, that rounds out the forward segment. Let us know what you think of our lists. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again next week.
And that is all for this one. Like I said at the beginning, do check out ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description. But yeah, if you like the video, do hit like, do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.